Hello, everybody. This is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome back to the 2023-2024 playoff game recaps. This time for Wildcard Game 2 on Saturday. It was the Chiefs taking on the Dolphins. And man, to say this game was a disappointment, not only was it exclusively on Peacock, so you needed to get a subscription, but I was lucky enough to watch it on TSN here in Canada. But this game really just wasn't great, man. It was very disappointing, and I was very perplexed by what I saw on the field. The players didn't even look like they wanted to be out there in minus 23 degree weather. So I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't want to be out there either, even as a Canadian. But let's get into the game recap. So it was a 26-7 victory for the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead at home in the playoffs. And let's start off with the Kansas City Chiefs stats. They had 409 total yards, 262 passing yards, 147 rushing yards, averaged 5.5 yards per play, 25 first downs. They went 6 for 15 on third down. They went 1 for 1 on fourth down, had 75 total plays, 0 sacks allowed, 3 punts, 5 penalties for 45 yards given up, 1 fumble lost, no interceptions thrown, and 34 minutes and 5 seconds of possession time. For the Miami Dolphins, they had 264 total yards, 188 passing yards, 76 rushing yards, averaged 4.5 yards per play, 13 first downs. They went 1 for 12 on third down. They just couldn't get the conversions that they needed. And that's one of the reasons why this offense just lost. They couldn't beat the Chiefs defense. I know, minus 23 or minus 27 rather degree weather, it's not ideal conditions at all, but you guys have just got to figure out a way to try and win. On fourth down, they went 3 for 6. They had 59 total plays, 2 sacks allowed, 4 punts, 8 penalties for 62 yards given up, 0 fumbles, 1 interception thrown. This one was to Mike Edwards, and it was just a bad throw. The wind kind of carried it, and it got intercepted by Mark Edwards. And they had 25 minutes and 55 seconds of possession time. For Ryan's focus players, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs for a minute, and let's talk about Patrick Mahomes going 23 for 41, had 262 passing yards, 1 touchdown to the reliable receiver in Rashee Rice. Good game from him, and 0 interceptions. Honestly, Patrick Mahomes in January is just a fantastic quarterback. He's got what, 14 wins now. So, in January in the playoffs, so nice to see from him. It looks like the cold really didn't affect him much, and it really showed in these passing stats. Nice to see from Patrick Mahomes, and also nice to see from Isaiah Pacheco. We knew that, everybody knew that Isaiah Pacheco was going to have a big role on this team on the offense because it's so cold out, so people aren't going to want to tackle this behemoth of a man. 24 carries, 89 yards, averaged 3.7 yards per carry with 1 touchdown. Just running through tackles all day. Angry runs, heavy power back vibes from Isaiah Pacheco. It was just insane to see him just run through people, and that's what he's known for. And he carried the workload for the Chiefs offense. And speaking of carrying workloads, let's talk about wide receiver Rashee Rice. 8 receptions, 130 yards, averaged 16.2 yards per play, per reception, and had the 1 touchdown. Rashee Rice, forgive me, I am not a Chiefs fan, so I didn't know much about Rashee Rice. All I knew about him was that he was the most reliable target for Patrick Mahomes all regular season long, and he looks to be showing up in the playoffs as well, man. You know, as a Seahawks fan, I didn't know much about him, but when I watched him on the field, when I watched him with my own eyes, he's a very physical guy. He can stiff arm you, he can run through you, and he doesn't give up. He gets to where he needs to go and puts in a second effort to get conversions and things like that. And that's why tackling him low doesn't usually work, and tackling him high, like Jalen Ramsey tried to do, doesn't really work either because he'll just push you off of him. So good game from Rasheed Rice. And let's talk about the Dolphins on the other side. Let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa going 20 for 39 with 199 total yards, one touchdown, one interception. Uh, Again, just a bad throw. And I know Tua's not used to being in minus 27-degree weather, but, you gotta figure out a way to try and get your team moving. You are a leader on this team. You need to try and find out how to get the offense, moving for you guys. The run game wasn't much better. Raheem Mostert, 8 carries, 33 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns, and that's all due to the defense. That's due to the cold, that's due to the Chiefs defense doing their job, and it wasn't a good game from Raheem Mostert. And let's talk about one of the bright spots on the only bright spot on this Dolphins offense, Tyreek Hill. 5 receptions, 62 yards, averaged 11.4 yards per reception, and had the one singular touchdown for the Miami Dolphins all game. Um, Good to see Tyreek Hill getting involved and good to see him getting a touchdown in his return to Arrowhead. Just wish that the offense would have shown a little bit more effort in this game. I know it's hard conditions, but you just need to help your defense out a little more. Speaking of defense, let's talk about the Chiefs defense, and let's talk about George Karlaftis on the D line. 3 for 3, 3 solo tackles, 3 assisted, 1.5 sacks, and 0 forced fumbles. Again, a big guy to deal with in the run game. That's why the run game wasn't as successful for Miami as it was in the past, and on the road, Miami's not very great. And at home, in January, the Chiefs defense really shows up here and gets the job done. Good game from George Karlaftis. Let's talk about the DBs and let's talk about L'Jarius Sneed. 4 solo tackles, 0 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, and he was on Tyreek Hill most of this game. And when you are dealing with somebody as special and as elusive and as talented as Tyreek Hill, it's very hard to keep him limited to just 5 receptions. But that's what happened here. Nice game from L'Jarius Sneed, all things considered. And let's talk about linebacker Nick Bolton. 5 solo tackles, 5 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. And his job right there was in this game was to stop the run, to help out in pass coverage when he needed to. And that's exactly what he did. Great game from Nick Bolton, tackling machine for the Chiefs. And this Chiefs team could ride their defense to a Super Bowl potentially if they keep this up. Let's talk about the Dolphins defense. And let's talk about Deshaun Hand for a minute on the D line. 1 solo tackle, 2 assisted, 0 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Now, this forced fumble came at 136 in the fourth quarter, so it was kind of null and void at that point because it was already 26-7. But good hustle from Deshaun Hand regardless. You know, this defense never really tried to give up. They were just having a really tough time trying to tackle because they're not used to this kind of weather. They're 0-11 now on the on games that are lower than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I understand it from a perspective that you're not used to this kind of weather, but it also is the playoffs. But decent game from Deshaun Hand. And let's talk about DB Jalen Ramsey. 4 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. But again, nice game from Jalen Ramsey, all things considered. He's on Rashee Rice a lot of the time. He's on Travis Kelce, who he limited, and he was out there making tackles. Trying to tackle Rashee Rice, is not an easy feat. Trying to tackle Isaiah Pacheco is not an easy feat. So, decent game from Jalen Ramsey. And let's talk about linebacker Duke Riley. 2 solo tackles, 8 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. But this man, there was a couple quarterback hits in there from Duke Riley, the guy who took over for Jerome Baker because he was injured. And considering that this Dolphins team couldn't get much pass rush, he was part of this pass rush, and he was at least trying to get in there. So all things considered, a decent game from Duke Riley, considering your defense's situation. And let's get to my thoughts on the game and my final thoughts. Congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs for moving on to the divisional round. You guys were really dominant in this game. Everyone came to play today for you guys, and it looks like the cold weather didn't really affect you guys that much because you guys just on both sides of the ball kept your style going, and your team is something else. Your team could be sneaky scary going into these playoffs. And congrats to Harrison Butker, 4 for 4 on field goals in minus 27-degree weather. So, nice game from him. Always nice to see your field goal kicker be reliable and put up 14 points for your team. For the Dolphins, wow, that was a really bad display out there. The defense played okay, and considering that they've had so many injuries on defense, you're missing 2 stable pass rushers in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. Those are 2 big misses, and you're also missing Jerome Baker at that. So the defense played okay for their situation, but it's honestly really embarrassing that you guys could only score 7 points the entire game on offense. I understand it's minus 27 out there, but you guys need to show up. You guys needed to show up last night. It's the playoffs, man. You can't end up not showing up because then you'll be eliminated like you were. And you guys could have really avoided this. This is what makes me so annoyed about that performance by the Dolphins is that if they had won in week 18 in the regular season against Buffalo, not only would Buffalo not be in the playoffs right now, but they could have secured home field advantage to battle Kansas City in Miami, and they didn't do that. So they go into an unfavorable situation, yes, but they are to blame for that unfavorable situation. They could have handled business in week 18 and they just dropped the ball. On the road, they are a really disjointed, disconnected offense, and it really showed up on the road here in the playoffs. But, anyways, that is the end of the wild card game to recap for Saturday. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I would like to know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyways, more playoff game recaps coming today, actually, because it is Sunday. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care and enjoy the rest of their wildcard weekend.